Batman Begins is a film of many firsts. It's the first film in the series to make Bruce Wayne an interesting character. It took 5 movies, but they finally cracked the code. And it's the only movie to show the origin story start to finish. It is quite possibly the first of many gritty reboots, and likely the best of the bunch. It features the live-action debut of several comic book characters: Lucius Fox, Victor Zsasz, Jonathan Crane, also known as Scarecrow, and most importantly for this video, Ra's al Ghul and Henri Ducard. Well, Henry, he's French, and no one likes the French.
Now, am I pronouncing this right? Mr. Ra's al Ghul?
In the comic book source material, Ra's and Ducard are separate characters. Ra's is a centuries-old eco-terrorist. Henry Ducard is a mercenary and most notable mentor of Bruce Wayne. He's also revealed to be the Shadow, but I have no idea if this story is currently canon. If you've played Arkham City or seen the animated series, then you'll know Ra's usually wants Batman to take his place as leader of the League of Shadows, Society of Shadows, the League of Assassins, Brotherhood of the Demon, whatever you want to call it. The character's creators initially intended for his race to be mysterious, which is an idea I love. He's so old that he has features reminiscent of the entire world. Perhaps he's from a race that doesn't exist anymore, but it is widely accepted that he's Arabic. So naturally, an Irishman plays him in the film. I suppose Batman fighting an Arabic terrorist would have been a little too on the nose for 2005, but it is odd that the next time the character was in live action, he was yet again whitewashed. Making Ra's al Ghul the man who trained Bruce Wayne to become Batman feels like one of those changes that you think would be in the canon from the start, similar to Alfred raising Bruce as a son. As far as I know, it has been added into the comics too, retroactively. The reason I love it so much is that it adds an extra layer of depth to why Ra's would be so desperate for Batman of all people to be his successor. Bruce is like the son he never had, and instead of him not reciprocating this, they actually did have a strong bond in the past. I think this makes the conflict feel so much more personal, as opposed to Ra's just inserting himself into Batman's life after he's fully established. Having to fight the man who essentially made you all that you are.
You are my greatest student. It should be you standing by my side, saving the world.
I'll be standing where I belong. Between you and the people of Gotham.
Is a trope that never tires for me. It also provides a nice contrast to how Batman was taught versus how he'd teach his own protege. One of the most controversial parts of the Nolan Batman trilogy has to be the choice to root everything in a form of reality. I think it works for some characters, but it certainly hinders others. Surprisingly, I think it kind of works for Ra's al Ghul, which you wouldn't think when you look at the comic book character, especially when the rejuvenating Lazarus pit is replaced with a big hole in the ground. However, I do think the film's route of making Ra's an ordinary man who turned himself into a legend is yet another way this version of the character contrasts with Bruce Wayne. Ra's is a everlasting symbol, which is everything Bruce will want for Batman. Only thing that would have made this hit harder would be if the filmmakers acknowledged the English translation of the original Hebrew or the Arabic Ra's al Ghul, the head of the demon, or demon's head. Being a legend is certainly an interesting way to interpret the immortality in a world similar to our own, and it's something we see Batman achieve in the final installment of the series.
The idea was to be a symbol. Batman could be anybody. That was the point.
Unfortunately, I do think The Dark Knight Rises undoes a lot of the intrigue that the League of Shadows and Ra's al Ghul have in Batman Begins. If we believe the words of the decoy Al Ghul and Liam Neeson's Ducard character, the League of Shadows have been around for centuries, much like their comic book counterparts. In Rises, it is implied that the Irish man with the Arabic name joined the League after a career as a mercenary, then rose through the ranks. Unfortunately, this doesn't entirely line up with what we learn in Batman Begins. Yes, I know characters in movies can lie, but I just find it more compelling if he's being genuine when he says this as opposed to glazing himself. Really makes the cult feel like a true brotherhood united under the one symbol.
Ra's al Ghul rescued us from the darkest corners of our own hearts. What he asks in return is the courage to do what is necessary. The League of Shadows has been a check against human corruption for thousands of years. We sacked Rome, loaded trade ships with plague rats, burned London to the ground. Every time a civilization reaches the pinnacle of its decadence, we return to restore the balance.
Gotham's time has come. Like Constantinople or Rome before it. The city has become a breeding ground for suffering and injustice. It is beyond saving and must be allowed to die.
This brings me on to the decoy portrayed by Ken Watanabe. There's a few ways to interpret this character. One as an adaptation of loyal henchman Ubu, who also serves as a decoy in the original Ra's story arc. I've also seen people compare him to the Sensei character in the comics. My favorite interpretation is that this character is meant to actually be Ra's al Ghul, and that Henry Ducard is who he says he is. Would be nice if the only live action version of Ducard is more than just an alias. Why do I like this? Well, maybe I'm just dumb, but to me it doesn't make sense for Raz to hide his true identity with a decoy until the third act of the film, where he needs to sneak up on Bruce, especially if he needs to form a close bond with Bruce during their training scenes. It's not like any of the League members use this to their advantage, unless they are expecting Bruce to betray them and still save what he thinks is Ducard. But the betrayal seems to be a genuine shock to both Raz and Ducard. Maybe they just really like the shit Yoda pulls on Luke in Empire Strikes Back. Ra's al Ghul, being a moniker passed down through the centuries, further pushes the legend idea and is a better, realistic adaptation of the comic book immortality than it being a simple case of just using decoys. It also implies that there was a Raz at the beginning with the League, centuries ago, just like how the Batman symbol is going to live forever, which I prefer to the League existing long before Ra's al Ghul was even born. It seems to be the direction the Arrow TV show took on too, despite having a real Lazarus Pit. I think it sort of helps forgive Raz being played by a white man too. It's always nice to see a character's live action debut work so well and come with so many improvements. Even making his motivation more based on crime and corruption heightens the idea that he is an evil Batman, as opposed to him trying to reverse the world to a more ancient time, though I think both motivations work well within their own rights. Just depends on what the story needs, and I suppose that is what I'm trying to say here. You can change a character from what they are on the page, but what you replace it with should either be good enough to stand truly apart or be better than what came before. It all depends on the point of the story that you are telling. If you want to see more videos like this where I compare live action superhero stories to their source material, then do let me know. For example, I've been considering making a video about how red kryptonite is portrayed in the TV series Smallville. So if this is something you're interested in hearing my thoughts on, then comment below. Video is over now. Go outside and play.